a nanny, we need to be able to create good relationships with the parents as well as with the children. But when it is coming to working within a private household, there's a lot of seriousness to that, right? You need to learn how to conduct yourself, keep that professionalism at all times. Know when to step out of the room, just go above and beyond your job description.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here. Today, we have a special guest. Her name is Kyra, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. Tell us a little bit about.
Hi, Melanie. So yeah, my name is Kyra Martin. I'm 37 years old and I've been a professional nanny for over 14 years now. My passion is to care and help children meet their developmental milestones by encouraging them and offering safe and healthy habits. Thanks for having me, Melanie.
That's really amazing, Kyra. So today, what we will talk about is all the things about nanny, like if you're a junior nanny or if you want to be an au pair. Kyra is so amazing. She has so much experience, and this is why I have invited her. You're definitely going to get the best advice from her. I quickly want to introduce myself too, just in case you don't know me. I'm the author of Rock Your Au Pair Year, and I'm also a life coach. I'm here on YouTube. I do different things, so check out this channel if you want more information on nannying, au pairing, traveling, but also dating and relationships. But today I'm going to ask Kyra a lot of questions about being a nanny. So let's begin. Can you give some advice to new nannies on whether they should be a live-in or a live-out nanny? What should they take into consideration before making that decision?
It's really about your own circumstances and where you are in the world. So it also depends on your age and if you're just kind of getting into nannying world, and also what kind of position you're applying for. So let's just say you're keen on traveling, or you don't want to live in your own city, but you want to try out different cities where you haven't been before. And I would advise that if you do go abroad, you're just starting to get a feel for the country or the city that you're in, maybe start with a live-in position, because the family can really offer a lot of guidance to help you to find your feet really when living in a new city. As a live-in nanny, of course, there are different expectations to being a live-in versus a live-out. And these are just things that you can research, definitely do your research, ask other nannies, also ask au pairs maybe, because au pairs, they seem to have a lot of good information of what it means to live in with the family. So I think that you really just have to determine where you are in your life. If you're, for example, a really social and outgoing person, you have your own home commitments, you're married, or you have a dog or your own children, then live-in is not a good option for you. So there are also other kind of positions that you might want to consider, which are called rota positions. And these kind of positions offer either 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or 4 weeks on, 4 weeks off. And like this, you can also get a little bit of that feel of what it means to work long hours within the private household. But then you also have this chance to go back home and you're off. With the rota position, though, you do need to understand and know that you will be working 24 hours for the length of periods. So if you do take on a 2 week on, 2 week off position, you'll be working for the entire 2 weeks. You will have, of course, a couple of hours a day where you are off and off shift. So you need to be able to find that balance, and you need to know if that's a good decision for yourself.
Yeah, I would agree on that because, as you know, I've been a live-in and a live-out nanny. So definitely, I feel that especially as you're starting out, and also especially when you're younger and you're still building on your experience, it's great to be a live-in nanny. But I think as you mature and gain more experience, and then maybe also build more of your own private life, just like you said, maybe you get married, maybe you get a dog, then you probably will choose the option of live-out nanny in the future. But living in is definitely a great option to begin with.
Obviously, the parents will cover your room and expenses. All your food will be covered. So you do just have to be aware that being a live-in nanny definitely means longer hours. You will be asked to work longer hours than a live-out nanny, and you'll get less pay than a live out nanny. But this is fair because obviously you don't have rent, you don't have expenses that come with having your own apartment, you don't have to worry about food. The family cover that for you. Other things are privacy, right? So you're living in their home, and I think it's very important that from the beginning, especially if you don't have so much experience as working as a nanny, or you're just starting off as a junior nanny, I think it's very important to sit down with the family and really kind of see what their expectations are of you as a live-in nanny. And just know that you'll want to put in some routines and some boundaries in place to understand that when you're off duty, you have privacy. House rules, that's another big one. So their house rules might completely differ from what you're used to, what you grew up with. So that's just something where I would just really recommend sit down with the family, be honest, say to them like, I'm not really comfortable, or I don't know how to react or be in this situation. Can you guide me? Can you help me? What are your expectations of me? And listen to them and see what that is. And then also, for example, a family might want to implement a curfew for the evening. So I've had a family that have implemented a curfew, and then I was also with a different family who didn't really mind. The thing with the curfew is it's not so much that they don't trust you going out and knowing your own time, but more so that if you come in later, say midnight or 1 o'clock, it might disrupt their sleep patterns. It might wake up the children. There are a number of reasons why they might implement the curfew. So not to take it as a negative thing right away, but rather understand why are they implementing this curfew? I wouldn't go as far as like that they're saying we're telling you what to do and we want to manage or micromanage. No, just try to understand, where they're coming from, and they might have a busy day, or they might be a light sleeper and they might not want you coming in at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Well, I know from families who have said that they are worried about the nanny's safety if she's out late. But I think it's definitely something you should ask beforehand. This could be something that somebody definitely doesn't want to deal with. So you should know ahead of time whether you are okay with that or not. Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely always ask these things at interview. Don't take it so serious. Like, just be aware of what's expected for you. And in the end, you'll make the decision that's right for you.
I do think that as a live-in nanny, I mean, sometimes if you're just starting out and you're young, you don't really know all the things that work for you, because that does come with time and experience. But you can still, even if you don't have so much experience, sit down and think about what you would like as in the living arrangement. Just like you said, your rules at home may be completely different to the rules in the family's home. One example I always give is that when I started to be an au pair in Australia, the family sent me like a PDF document, and it was 5 pages long. And they apologized that it was so long, but till this day, I always come back to this example because I knew exactly what was expected, and that was actually the best thing they could have done, because I knew what their boundaries were and I was completely fine with all of them. We never had any issues. So it's actually better to know rather than find out later.
Absolutely. I mean, also, my best advice is really to have an open communication policy, right? So just definitely ask them, like in your case, you had a PDF so you could read through it. I think that's so wonderful, because when you move in and you're living with the family, I think like it's already a little bit too late to like make changes and bring forward your needs and requirements. I think all that really does need to be set in stone when signing the contract. But of course, like you said, I started off as a live-in nanny. That was my very first nanny position ever in London for a high-profile family. And I was learning, like, you know, like any other new nanny learning. This was over 14 years ago. And yeah, it just also depends on the family, you know. Some families, they're really, you know, happy to show and guide you, but you can't take advantage out of that. So definitely find yourself a nanny with maybe some more experience that can offer advice and be your mentor. I had a nanny friend that was my mentor, Julie, and I've now offered that to other nannies, and we kind of help each other and coach each other, and so that we don't have to bother the family with these things, right? Because that's
Yeah.
kind of what we want to avoid.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, now there's so much advice out there. There's different YouTube
Exactly.
channels from other nannies and au pairs. There's books, there's a lot of guidance. And yeah,
For sure.
definitely. You can also find other au pair or nanny friends. How do you find out, or how do you decide which family is right for you?
First and foremost, you really need to decide what it is that you're looking for and what can you offer the family. So I
Mhm.
think that you need to take a look at your own circumstances, really, and also to know how flexible you can be. So if you're single with no commitments and you're just looking to work and save, or you want to travel, things like that, then of course you can take a job that offers a nanny position with extensive travel all around the world, and you're always on the go. It's always changing one minute to the next. You just basically, you're 100% available for this family. Whereas if you have home commitments, that's not the lifestyle that you pursue or that you want, then yeah, maybe definitely look for a family that's, more grounded, can offer more regular hours where the parents come home at the end of the day. And these are just things that you have to really determine for yourself before you apply to a position. Know what you want, know what you can offer.
Yeah, I think it's also about being honest with yourself, because it can be really easy because it's such a personal thing. At least I find I need to be on the same wavelengths with the family. If you, let's say you really like a family, but they are asking for a lot of flexibility and you know that you're not going to be happy with that, then you need to be honest with yourself and them that even though you
Yeah,
like
that's
them
good.
as a person, it's not going to work out
Yes.
in the long run. Yeah, so definitely
That
I
I can completely appreciate and agree with. This has always been one of the easiest parts, for me, is to decide if it's the right family or not. I'm just a very loyal nanny, and I'll only ever work for one family at a time
Mhm.
because that's all I can take on, is this one family. And to me, the family, they're just in first place. And my own family and my own needs is always second. That's been always my work ethic. That's always how I've, worked basically. So I think that it's just very important for me anyway to envision the post long term. Yeah.
Mhm.
So how is this family going to affect my position with them long term? Can I stay with them for 2 years? Can I stay with them for 4 years? Is this something that we kind of can find common ground? Or is it just going to be short lived? Are you a nanny that just wants to change families every year because you just want, like I said, this thing with the traveling nannies, they tend to just want to go from one place to the next and they just offer 1 to 2 years and that's it.
Mhm.
So that's not something that I can relate to because, like I said, I like to be with the same family long term. So I like to stick with them. Yeah. So I think it
Yeah,
really depends on what you're looking for.
I think the more you know and the more that you have found yourself, definitely also in the process of finding a family, you can be much clearer and you don't have to waste anybody's time if
Yeah.
you know exactly what you want. Starts with
Yeah.
reading a family profile. You can already, I mean, you won't even need to apply for that many positions if you know exactly what you
Exactly.
want, and you can make your application way more outstanding if you just apply for the ones that you really want. I would say, yeah, quantity before quality in this case. But yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
When deciding if the family is right for you, of course, it's very important, to make sure that the whole family is the right choice for you. So the parents as well as the kids, or the kids as well as the parents. You might have a great bond with the children, but you don't really, you can't connect so well with the parents, or vice versa. You might get on really well with the parents, but you can't connect so well with the children. That can happen. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad nanny if you cannot bond with a child. So just remember that each child has their own individual personality and temperament, and they're all learning and growing. And it's our job to help them and encourage them to make the right choices, and, to offer them safety while they're learning and growing into their own selves, right? So I think that it's just really important that you look at the big picture, and not just, am I getting along with the parents? Are the points in our contract working out? You need to look at the bigger picture also, and decide, can I do fun things with the kids? Are the qualities and the skill set that I can offer, do they match what the family is looking for? If they're looking for someone really academic, or someone with instrumental knowledge, I wouldn't be the right fit. I can't play a single instrument, right? But if they're looking for someone who's very sporty, outdoorsy, nutrition focused, art, can offer arts and crafts, then I would be the right fit, or languages or whatever, right? Then we'd be the right fit. So I think it's very important to just look at the big picture of the description of the family, and get to know the family, and see if you're the right candidate for that.
Yeah, I think this is a very good point, because it's very easy to think that it's more important to get along with the children because you spend more time with them. And in a lot of cases, the parents will be out working. But just like you say, in the long run, you do need to get on with both parties, and the parents are ultimately the ones who decide how they want the kids to be raised, what the boundaries should be. And if communication with the parents is difficult, or you disagree with how they raise their children, you're always going to have a conflict, even if it doesn't surface immediately. Over time, it is difficult if you are not on the same wavelength. So 100%. It might not seem that way in the beginning, but yeah, if, like you say, you have a bigger vision, and I mean, regardless, even if you just want to stay there 1 year, that's still a long time. You still need to get on with everyone.
Yeah, so it's all about the family philosophies, their philosophies and their views on life, how they want to raise their children, and basically, can you adapt your knowledge and skill set to meet their needs? Because it's about them, right? And if you're not the right person for that, that's okay. You'll be the right person for a family, for some other family.
Exactly.
So it's just making that right choice.
Sometimes I find it good, just for your own clarity, to define 3 things you are looking for in a family, and then maybe 3 things that are off limits, that are just not okay with you, just so that when you are going into that selective process, that that you can keep that clarity, that you have that in the forefront of your mind. If you would break it down to a couple of key questions to ask, questions that you shouldn't miss, what would you say?
I always ask the family to tell me their parenting philosophies and their lifestyle. For me, those are the 2 absolute crucial questions where I can determine, is this a family that I can see myself working for long term? Yeah. And also, how do they envision raising their children? I'll also ask them to describe a typical weekend, because this is when the family are actually together. All work aside, all seriousness aside, homework's done. What do they do as a family? What do they discuss around the dinner table? How do they conduct their weekends? I really love hearing, what they do.
This is a very interesting question. I've never heard this, but I'm glad that you're saying this here, because it tells you, you're right, it tells you so much about the family dynamics and what they're like. That's so true. Yeah.
Privately, with all work and all homework aside, all that, household chores, all of that is during the week. What do they do on the weekends? That's where you're really gonna understand, what is this family about? What do they do? What do they talk about? That's where you're gonna get key answers in those questions.
So interesting. Yeah.
Also, would they welcome their nanny's experience and advice, right? So do they want our views? Do they want our advice? And to which extent? So how much advice do they want from us? How much, do they want it in a more of a discreet manner? Will they ask directly in front of the children? These kind of things can really tell you, is this a family that's going to welcome you, welcome your experience, welcome your advice, or do they just want helping pair of hands and you just come and do your job, and that's okay as well. That's totally fine. And then for parents that are working from home, I'll ask them things like, well, what are their boundaries around working times? Like, for example, it really just is about, do they welcome their children to come into their office? What are the rules and boundaries about a typical day when the parents are working from home? So that's something that would interest me. And then I think lastly, this is also quite important for me anyhow, is I'm just interested to hear from both mom and dad what their approach to stress, accidents, and disputes are. So how do they react in certain situations, whether that might be some dangerous news that just, came live, or there's been an accident, someone just bumped their head lightly, but how do they react in that situation? And I just listen and observe. I don't comment.
Yeah.
Because this will tell me also what the environment is like in their home. Yeah, are they calm, balanced, or are they a little bit more, frisky and jiffity and hoppity, and like, this is also, especially for babies, they really take on your feelings. And also for older children, we are their role models. So depending on how we, the nanny and also the parents, are handling stress and anxiety or news or whatever, will also play a huge factor on how the children will react to certain things.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. And so once someone's found their family and they are coming into this new work environment, they want to create an amazing relationship from the get-go, what tips and advice would you give in that situation?
So definitely be honest right from the beginning what your intentions are. Never lie or bend the truth. Just, come in there and, even if you're afraid or you want to be a certain someone, but you're not, then just be honest about that with the knowledge and the experience that you have. Let the parents decide whether or not you meet their expectation and their needs. And also, like, for example, implementing good manners, etiquette, offering a well-balanced nutrition plan, being able to provide safety, trustworthiness, flexibility to the family's needs. Discuss any of these issues during the contractual phase. It's always better to discuss everything before you start working for them. You can also, like, for example, me personally, I like to always have a diary at the beginning where I write things down, what we've been doing the whole day or during the week. I like to have themed weeks, especially in the beginning of the relationship. So the parents are like, okay, I'm leaving my child with a stranger, but I'll check in also. I'll ask the parent, would you like me to send you a few updates during the day, what we're doing? If they say no, because we're very busy, then I'll write it in the diary what they did. And when they come home, we'll have a nice handover, but then they can also read in the diary, okay, this is what they did during the day, and they can feel a little bit included like that. Or
Yeah.
for example, if it's a baby you're working for and they just took their first steps, take a picture of that, send it to the parents, let them know that their baby just took the first steps, make them be the ones that are really a part of this. Get to know the family, get to know their likes and their dislikes, listen for direction in the beginning to how they like things done. Or maybe you've done something and they don't really like it, and you can kind of read that or feel it. So ask them to show you how they'd like something done, whether it be folding the t-shirts a different way or whatever.
I think communication is important in the entire relationship with the family, but particularly when you first come in, those first impressions should definitely not be underestimated. How you conduct yourself, how you smile, how you say hello, how you let the parents know about the day, just like you said. I think that this is obviously important through the entire relationship, but particularly in the beginning, because that's how you set the tone of that relationship. And
sure.
If you make the first impression and the first steps really amazing, then like you said, the parents are going to trust you. They're going to feel really positively about you and about your work. And that's going to have a really great influence on the relationship as a whole. I can relate to that because when I was an au pair, not just about the relationship to the family and the children, I remember when I moved to Australia and I had a few days with the previous au pair and she made certain offers. I'm really glad I took her up on all these offers, because I think that if you can get to know as much as you can in the beginning, then you can have a really great start. And just like you say, those questions, how would you like me to do this or that? If you ask it in the beginning, then you can get that right from the start, rather than if you ask a few weeks later. Well, first of all, the parent might ask themselves, well, why didn't she ask me that from the get-go? And you might get things, I don't really like the word wrong, but maybe wrong for them. And sometimes, even though you might say, okay, the parent could have come to me and showed me, but it's easier if you can make those connections yourself, because not everyone feels comfortable to come to you and tell you, or sometimes people forget. But especially, we are all kind of, we don't like to upset people. All of us like to people please at least a little bit, just because most of us do like peace. So if you can make those connections at the very start, then that's a really positive thing.
For sure. No, you're right. Getting also to know the previous nanny, if there was a previous nanny, and really asking her, a lot of questions is going to help you in so many ways.
Yeah.
And another thing that I want to say is also to bond with your charges, try to create a bond from the beginning. Already from the first phone call, you can ask the parents, well, what do they like? What don't they like? Do they have any fears? Because, for example, imagine you come into your interview and you, I don't know, blow some bubbles, or you talk about dinosaurs and they're terrified of those things, right? So that's not gonna help you bond. That's gonna be like, oh, I don't want this lady coming in again, or I don't want this guy coming in again. So try to get information from the parents also about the children, what they like. A lot of caregivers, they find it really easy to bond with the children and to create a good relationship with the children. But as a nanny, we need to be able to create good relationships with the parents as well as with the children. The children, it's like, that's what you've learned to do with the children, right? But when it is coming to working within a private household, there's a lot of seriousness to that, right? You need to learn how to conduct yourself appropriately. You need to understand what it is the parents are looking for. How do they interact within their own household when they come home from work? So you need to understand them. So that's why it's really great to just ask those questions at interview. That's why those questions like, what's your lifestyle? What are your philosophies? Those kind of questions are just really so helpful. How do you have a typical weekend day kind of thing?
Yeah. And we talked about how important it is to create an amazing relationship, but I do think it's also important to talk a little bit about how to create a balanced relationship, because we are not going to be as close with them as a friend, for example, because it's still, at the end of the day, is a professional relationship.
Yeah. So knowing how to read the room is key, right? So when you come in, you can, like, whether you're coming in the morning or in the afternoon, you can really get a lot of information just kind of reading the room, what everyone is, doing in the moment, read their faces, read their body language. How is the mood when you come in, right? So be polite and aware of your surroundings at all times. You don't need to come in like screaming hello and bringing in your jolly self, but definitely come in with a smile and just show that you're ready. You're ready. You're there now to take over and help, assist, because in some situations it's not to take over, but to help and to assist, and just always be aware of what's going on. Another thing is, for example, it can happen that a family will offer a glass of champagne in the evening, or they invite you to dinner. So I think that you need to just try to be very professional in that moment. Of course, you can accept the invitation, you can have a glass of champagne, but never try not to ever overindulge or overshare. Definitely stop before you start feeling giggly. Just remember that they are not your friends. Yeah, it's still a professional relationship, whether you're a live-in nanny or a live-out nanny. They are not your friends. Definitely accept the invitation, have a nice dinner, have a nice glass of champagne. No need to overshare, but also don't be rude by not sharing anything. Try to find that balance, really, and remain respectful. So, if you're a live-in nanny and they invited you to dinner, then enjoy the dinner. But if you notice that, they now want to, maybe they're going to still offer you some champagne or wine or something, you can then be the professional one here and say, no, I have a busy day tomorrow with the little kiddos. I'd like to call it a night, but thank you so much for the dinner invitation. I had a great night, and that's it. And then off you go to either your live out, so you leave, or you're live in and off you go to your area, right? So I think there you have to really read the room, find the right balance, and keep that professionalism at all times. And then there are some other things, like, for example, know when to step out of the room. Let's just say the mom, she's working from home and she's been in her office all day, but she wants to come out and spend some one-on-one time with her kiddos. Know when to step out, go off and do some other chores, but be mindful that maybe she needs to get back to the office, so then be ready to step in again to take over. Also, for first-time parents, use your gentle tone and calm demeanor. Offer guidance, and maybe they're very nervous to give their baby a bath, and you can just be there to reassure them. You can show them and guide them. Try not to take control of the situation, but let them do it. They'll really appreciate you for these little things. They will feel, okay, this person really wants what's best for us, right? So I think those are just things to be mindful of, and it comes naturally. Yeah. So
yeah, I definitely agree with what you said. And I think that, just to keep that balance is really important, to really think about those things and keep control. I do think that this relationship can merge into a friendship. Like, for example, when I was an au pair back in the day, I'm still friends with the family now. But I think that as long as you are employed, you should definitely keep that balance alive. I
100% agree with you on that one. Yeah, like the family that I first worked for in London, my very first family, I'm still in touch with them today, and many other families as well. We have such a great relationship. If I'm ever in London, I'll definitely go and see them. And I chat to the kids now, are teenagers, so I'll chat, to one of the kids on WhatsApp here and there, and that's always fun. And they remember me. It's a wonderful relationship. But yes, while you're working for that family, I think that there definitely needs to be that cut, and not to go over to the friend side, because it can very quickly turn messy if you do, because you are working with them in such a close environment for such a long period of time. It's not like an office job where you see your colleague and then you can kind of clock off. Being a nanny, you're kind of always there. Even if you're a live out, you're always thinking of the family. You're always thinking about, what are the kids doing? Are they okay? It's always kind of on the back of your mind. You need to find a balance, and you need to know how to clock off and just keep your personal life away from work life. And then of course, at the end of the contract, when you're going your own ways, if you've had a good relationship, a good working relationship, and you want to stay in contact with the kids or the family, and they appreciate that, yeah, that's just a wonderful thing to have. And I appreciate all my families that I still am in contact with.
Yeah, me too. And now, because the importance of home working has grown over the past 2 years, maybe you can share a little bit tips and advice with home schooling or home parents working from home and being a nanny in the same household.
This is actually really similar to a shared charge position.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it's really important just to have a sit down meeting with the parents to discuss how to divide the rooms, and also just to know their expectations, right, during these times. Have a clear routine in place. So if you haven't really had a routine in place before, definitely make a routine now when parents are working from home. If there is homeschooling going on, you have like set times, set up timings where the children can, connect with their parents. I can advise, like, for example, the nanny could cook a simple meal for the family, and then they can kind of reconnect over lunch and get together. And either the nanny sits down with them, or the nanny might also want to just step out for half an hour and clear her head, because, she or he, they're also there working full days now, or could be working full days. So they might just talk to the parents and be like, so I'll cook your meal, but then I'll, maybe step out for half an hour, get some fresh air or whatever. And then I'll come back, and they really appreciate that. They love that. So that's maybe something that you can consider. It's all about communication. It's all about openness. You just need to speak to the parents. As soon as there are negative feelings bottling up, that's just going to affect your working relationship. It's going to affect your mood with the children. And these were difficult times. It wasn't just about home office, homeschooling. It was also other factors, stress and pandemic issues and whatnot. So I think that definitely creating that balance, but also safety and reassurance that everything is going to be fine. You're there to help the family, and just really bring in that happy demeanor and willingness to work hard and show the family that you're there for them. I think that goes a long way, and they will, of course, in return, show their appreciation as the time goes by.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk a little bit about how to be the best nanny that you can be, and maybe how to stand out as a nanny in the marketplace.
I believe that to be the best nanny, you just really need to remember to listen and understand the parents' needs. I think that goes a long way, just to listen, right? Be aware of their parental philosophies, because they might differ from yours, and that's okay. Yeah, but it's important about what they need. Yeah, it's about them. So that's why it's important to understand what their views on life are. It's also vital that you can basically take all your knowledge, and adapt it to meet their needs, right? So even if your views are not in line 100%, you're still willing to adapt your ways to meet their needs, right? So in the end, it's about what the family requires and how they want their children to be raised. And just to basically, for the nanny to provide that service, to create a calm and balanced environment. And then, of course, there are other things that make an outstanding nanny. Yeah, like really knowing your line of work, able to provide the utmost care for your charges that you're looking after, keeping your qualifications updated, making sure that you update your first aid course, be aware of, the newest kind of CPR medications, things like that, so that you can react in an emergency. I think that's super important. Parents really appreciate that. Understanding what it means to work in a private household and conduct yourself appropriately. I think that's also, that also goes a long way. And basically just go above and beyond your job description. So show the family that you're there for them with all the commotion and with all the craziness that's going on in their busy life. You're there for them to provide them with that safety net, really. Basically, what I've learned is that anyone can take care of children, but for me, it's an absolute honor to be a nanny. I love it. It's my passion. I wouldn't change it for the world. These families have trusted us to look after their children. With that in mind, I come to work every day with a smile, and I'm ready to be diligent and hardworking and take on any challenge that comes my way. So yeah, that's how I'd love to end it.
Absolutely amazing. I just wanted to add one more thing. I think being an outstanding nanny and doing the best at your job that you can kind of also goes back to finding the right family for you. If you're really clear on what you want and how you can excel, like what type of personality or family you need to excel, the better you can be at your job. Because if you're looking for a job and you're just settling for the first family because you don't want to wait, you don't want to be unemployed or put so much effort into it, then you can easily end up in a job that you're not happy with. And if you're not happy, you cannot excel.
And you're committed. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really, really important, not to settle for something that is not really for you.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing that I wanted to say is, like, for example, as soon as a nanny feels tension or feels that maybe they have already communicated with the family, but it's not really kind of going well, or there's just that negativity in the air, I would just advise that that's really a key point to say, okay, maybe it's time to move on. Because at the end, these families, they need someone positive and well balanced to be there in their household and to be looking after their children. As soon as there's like this tension that goes on for longer periods of times and it doesn't get resolved through the communication, the sit downs, sometimes even families need to pull in the agency again to help them to deal with certain disputes with the nanny. It's just a sign that either you've just come to the end of your working relationship or basically to the end of what you can offer. And that's okay. That's totally fine for you then to say, you know what, this isn't working anymore. I can't offer 100%. I can't be there 100% for you, or my needs have changed or something. And that's perfectly fine. And then try to end it on a good note rather than the negativity kind of way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm actually glad you're bringing this up, because I think a lot of au pairs and probably also nannies, if they are in a job that they're not 100% happy with, and they keep thinking, should I change families? Should this relationship come to an end or not? And they keep thinking. And then as they're thinking, the relationship, like you say, deteriorates. There's more tension as these things don't get resolved. It's not so much a failure. It's actually better for both parties. If something is clearly not working, it's better for you to move on to somewhere where it is working, and for that family to get a different nanny that is better suited for them. Exactly. I know to come to this conversation with the family is not always easy, but definitely don't see it as a failure, because life is always about changes. And sometimes we've just come to a relationship to learn from it and then move on.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, a nanny should never see herself as a failure in that sense, because this kind of job is always changing, and the needs of the family are so, they're demanding and they're always changing. And we have to be able to offer that service in positive light. We need to give them that break, really. It's a break, right? I just think that always try to bring your happy side to the job. And if that's not possible, make an end to it and move on so that another nanny can, take over and offer her positive light to that job.
And on that note, we're coming to an end with this interview as well. So I just want to thank you again so much, Kyra.
Thank you, Melanie, for having me.
You offered so much amazing information. Thank you so much. And I hope
so.
you all enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments and we'll be sure to answer them. Okay, I'll say bye to you now. Bye.